One of the sentences in my book, Silent Scars, Learning to Heal from Trauma, says trauma, whether it stems from a single event or prolonged exposure to distress, imprints itself deeply in the psyche. That is the first sentence out of the chapter, Understanding the Hidden Effects of Trauma on the Mind and Body. As I have stated before, as a five-time miscarriage survivor, that sentence stemmed out of I had no idea the effects that the miscarriages had. I felt like I had a little bit of understanding of the effects that they had on my body, but not fully. But then I had to also realize the effects that the miscarriages were having on my mind. I would say the first couple miscarriages, I had no idea the effects that they had on my mind. I had no idea that my mind had become so cloudy and so exhausted with fear, with just hope, with just wondering if each pregnancy was going to make it. Now, even though my miscarriages came within the first going into the second trimester every time, I was one of those women that believed as soon as I saw that line show up on that stick, that meant that I was pregnant. I didn't think about the science of when the heart starts beating or when certain parts start developing. I didn't think about it as, the fetus and all of the embryo and all of the different scientific aspects. Because when I saw that stick light up, I basically believed without a shadow of a doubt it was a baby. Now, I know that's not scientifically correct, but I'm just sharing with you what happened in my thought process. So the distress that came from the pregnancies not making it, I believe it increased because of the fact that I truly did believe that each time it was a baby. So each time I felt like I was losing a baby. And when I write in that first chapter of Silent Scars, Learning to Heal from Trauma, when I write that sentence of the effects that it has on your mind and your body, I'm speaking from personal experience. I'm not just saying words that sound good. Now, how that sentence is structured, it sounds very well. I just think I'm putting a little bit of that graduate education into play in that sentence structure, but it really also came from a place deep in my heart and in my mind because I was in complete distress and devastation. And after the first actual miscarriage, I really, really struggled because I thought that that meant something was wrong with me. I thought that, man, how I could get that sick with the hyperemesis plus end up having a miscarriage. I just thought that everything that I had thought all of these years since I had started my menstrual cycle were absolutely horrible. Like I was a person that experienced endometriosis, but I didn't even know that that's what it was when I first started my menstrual cycle at age 13. But when I started my menstrual cycle, I'm not trying to do TMI, but it would be excessive bleeding. It would be not getting enough oxygen to my brain because I was flowing so heavy. So I would have constant headaches, constant dizziness, constantly feeling like I was going to pass out. So I was lightheaded a lot. I vomited a lot. I had 3 surgical procedures so that they could try to figure out what was going on, and it ended up being endometriosis. And anybody that has suffered from endometriosis, which I may actually do a video in regards to that later on, but they know anybody that has suffered with that know that it has the potential to make your time of the month excruciatingly bad. It would be so bad for me at times that I would have to take off the first 3 days of work, first 3 days of school, and I would just be suffering. None of the medication would work because the medication would make me sick, which in turn I would vomit it up. And if I'm vomiting up, there's no way it can get into my bloodstream to be able to do what it's supposed to do. So from age 13, actually all the way until I got to perimenopause, which I won't even go there about the perimenopause because that's a whole beast all by itself. But all the way up until then, I have had female problems. I've had very serious female issues. I've had cysts removed. I've had, small fibers, all of these various things that honestly, I didn't think because I was not knowledgeable enough to know. I had no idea of knowing that all of that could affect my pregnancies. Now, yes, I have two sons. One is 27 and one is getting ready to be 24 years old. And I called them my miracle babies because I went through so much to try to have them. And when I say so much, if anybody has ever dealt with hyperemesis, you know what I mean when I say so much. It not only messes with you physically to a devastating effect, it also messes with your mind because you're sick all day, all night long. And even to the point where if you're not careful, you would want to abort the child because you're so just gravely ill. Now, all of you fabulous mothers out there that did not go through that want to judge that last statement that I just made, I would suggest that you're not if you haven't been through hyperemesis because it has the ability to leave its effect even after if you make it through full term with the child. So with my sons, they induced me actually each time between 35 and 36 weeks because they were so compassionate about how much I had went through. And I'm talking about I went through it from my husband having to change my IVs to me having a pump in my leg that pumped out Zofran to try to control some of the vomiting, to me having to check my ketones with urine strips. And it was so much. I couldn't even eat ice. I couldn't drink water. With my pregnancies, I gained maybe, including the baby, maybe 16 pounds, if that. And that was only like towards the end. I was so deathly ill that I could not work. I could barely function. The things that we take for granted, that we do daily, I could not do. So to go through that for 10 weeks, sometimes up to 12 weeks or close to 12 weeks, and then miscarry is the reason why I wrote that first statement. Because trauma has such an impact that it could leave such an impression on your body, but as well as your mind. And having the ability to be able to be restored from that, to be able to think clearly enough to even want to try again, or to get out of that mindset of what's wrong with me as a woman. And true enough, now at 53 years old, I know that there is nothing wrong with me. And I understand that it's important for you to know the history of your family on both sides. Because as time went on, I realized that there were certain female issues on my dad's side with the women on my dad's side of the family, but even on my mom's side, there were some various struggles. But oftentimes, because we don't talk this way, you have no idea that some of the things that you could be going through are a result of some of your family medical history. So it's just very important for you to know that. Now, would that have lessened my pain? Not at all. But I feel like it would have given me a little bit of foreknowledge of what I could encounter. Now, with the book Silent Scars, Learning to Heal from Trauma, I also wanted people to understand that when you have these levels of effect on your body and on your mind, it's a place that many that are around you, though they may be a great support, they may not understand. And 9 times out of 10, they won't understand because you're the one that's actually in it. And I remember, just to be completely transparent and honest with you, and I really don't care what you think about it, I remember one time I had locked myself in the bathroom when I was pregnant in that one of those early stages. And I was so deathly sick. I was so sick of going to doctor's appointments and having to be sent over to the hospital to get 2 bags of fluids, or being in the doctor's office and they happened to give me fluids immediately. I was so exhausted with being hospitalized and not being able to work, and the financial strain that it had on just on every aspect. And I remember going in that bathroom that day and locking that door and sitting in the tub with no water in it, but just sitting in there. And I remember my husband coming home and was like, knocking on the bathroom door, like, what you doing in there? And I didn't care really how it sounded or how it looked. And I can't even tell you that at that point, I knew that pregnancy had with that hyperemesis, had started having an effect on my psyche that to this day, I am so absolutely, positively grateful to God that He has restored my mind, because it was rough. I went through that, getting pregnant, having, my sons, getting pregnant, miscarrying, all of those various things for 13 years. Now, somebody could be saying, why would you put yourself through that many times? Well, that wasn't necessarily the plan. Now, I was trying to give my husband a daughter, but the plan was every time I had hope and I believed that it wouldn't be like the last time. And each time I experienced hyperemesis. And that is why I wanted to get on here and to share with you that first sentence of, that first chapter of the effects of trauma on the mind, understanding the effects of trauma on the mind and the body, because that may resonate with somebody. It may not resonate with everybody. Everybody's story is different. But one thing that I've been gifted with is the gift to be able to speak the truth and it not be based upon how I think people are going to receive it or not receive it. And I believe that's one of the reasons why God uses me within this profession, because it's the only thing that I know that will set people free. So I don't get on here ashamed of my story, but I get on here as a survivor, and I get on here as someone who is extremely, extremely grateful to God for bringing me through. So I hope that this time that I've spent with you today is a blessing for you. And listen, if you would like to purchase my book, Silent Scars, Learning to Heal from Trauma, at the link below at www.helptohealservices.com, you can go ahead and get you a copy. I hope you have the most amazing day.